Let's take a look at here. We got question 3. Like I said, we're gonna skip 2. I'm not gonna put that question 2 on the test. 3. Select all solutions to x minus 2 squared equals negative 16. Okay, I'm gonna rewrite this down here. X minus 2 squared equals negative 16. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to get x all by itself. So we're trying to get x by itself to find the solutions here. But look at this. This whole thing is x minus 2. It's all stuck under here, down underneath this exponent. And in the past, we've done a lot of inverse operations, like where you would add 4 to both sides. But what's the inverse of a square? Well, this is squared. So the inverse, to get rid of that to the power of 2, what you're going to need to do is take a square root. If we take a square root of all this right here, then this square root will cancel out that power of 2. And now we're going to get x minus 2 out from underneath the radical there. But in math, anytime we do something to one side, we always do it to the other. So if we're going to take a square root of the left side, we better make sure we take a square root of the right side as well. And now there's a couple funny things going on here. First off, let me mention that anytime we take a square root of something, you need to keep in mind that basically any number like 2, I like to use 2 as an example, right? If we take positive 2 times positive 2, or 2 squared equals positive 4. And the funny thing is, negative 2 squared, negative 2 times negative 2, is also positive 4. So when we take a square root, we need 2 solutions, because we don't know if the square root of 4 is positive 2 or negative 2. And I think it's a really cute way to remember this is we say, if you're going to give it a hat, let's give it a fancy hat. So we'll picture a hat. We've got this funny looking hat right here. And if we give it a hat, we're going to give it a fancy hat. So let's put if I can get this thing drawn here, my gosh. Here's my ugly little hat. I'm going to make it a fancy hat. I'm going to put a fancy feather in the cap. You know what this feather is? It's the plus and minus. And the hat is this little radical down here in orange. So if we take a square root of anything, let's remember there's going to be a positive square root and a negative square root. And just a funny way to remember that is if you give it a hat, give it a fancy hat. Let's put the feather in the cap over here. Okay, so what this means, I like to say this is a choose your own ending situation. What we're going to have here is either the positive or the negative square root of negative 16. Now the next problem that we've got, technically there is no square root of a negative number. See, if you square something that's negative, you get a positive number. And if you square something that's positive, you get a positive number. So there's no number times itself. No negative number times itself equals any kind of a perfect square. It just doesn't exist. Every perfect square is positive. So that's why we learned about this number I, this imaginary number I. So let's keep this plus or minus square root for now. Well, I talk about how we're going to get rid of that negative in front of the 16. We can think of negative 16 as negative 1 times negative 16. And we learned about this imaginary number that some mathematician came up with where he decided, let's go ahead and call the square root of negative 1 I. And if we use this imaginary number, we'll be able to do calculations that they weren't able to do before. And so if the square root of negative 1 is I squared equals negative 1. And now what we can do is we can take the square root Oh, look, I put a negative here. We got the negative gone in front of the 16 by separating it from -1. So now I couldn't take a square root of -16, but if I'm going to use I for the square root of -1, I can take a square root of +16, which is just 4. So what we got here is x minus 2 equals plus or minus 4i. So the I came from the square root of -1, 4 is the square root of +16, and we got the plus or minus from the fancy hat, feather in that cap. All right, here's our choose your own ending situation. We're going to have two solutions here. We've got x minus 2 equals positive 4i, and or x minus 2 equals negative 4i. And so now we're just going to do the thing that we've always done in the past, is try to get x by itself, right? We need some inverse operation. I've got -2 here. To get rid of that, I'm going to have to add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to add 2 to cancel out that -2, and then I'll have x by itself. I don't know what my solution is, but if I do something to one side, I always got to do it to the other. We got the same thing going on over here in our second solution. And now we can rewrite these. Our final answer is going to be x equals positive 2 plus 4i. And look, I don't know why I got I on the brain here. I didn't need to put that either. I'm not adding 2i, I'm just added 2 to both sides. So 2 plus 4i, and I've got x equals positive 2 minus 4i. We got that in our solutions here. It says choose all solutions. 2 minus 4i is looking like G, and 2 plus 4i is D. And there you go. That's how you got to do that. You just got to remember to take a square root to get something out from under that exponent of 2. If you do something on one side, do it to both. Remember, if you take a square root, you can have a positive and a negative solution. And we're going to use I to get rid of the negative. And that's about it.